Let's get into it. Libra rising, the zodiacal year ahead, Aries to Pisces season 2022 to 2023. If we haven't met yet, my name is Shuka. I am a traditional astrologer that uses both Hellenistic and ancient Persian techniques in order to decipher the language of the stars and map out what's coming up for you. Feel free to like and subscribe for future videos that help you maximize your potential using the stars, like they say, as above, so below. In order to jump into the spring season, which includes Aries, Taurus, and Gemini season, we got to rewind a little bit to December 29th of 2021, when Jupiter moved home into Pisces, into your 6th house, which deals with coworkers, subordinates, pets, and your physical health. This jettisoned off a beginning of growth and abundance in this area of life for you. And back on February 3rd, 2022, all planets were stationed direct, and they will stay that way until April 29th of 2022. Think of this as a go, go, go vibe where things are really being propelled forward. On March 20th, 2022, the sun made its way into Aries, marking the beginning of spring and a new zodiacal year. On April 4th, 2022, Mars conjuncts Saturn in your Aquarius 5th house. And depending on if you're a day chart or a night chart, that'll impact how this affects you. But your 5th house deals with things like love, romance, creativity, what you birth into the world, and fun. And with Mars being the planet of taking action, and Saturn, especially in Aquarius, loving the word no, being the planet of boundaries and restriction, think action being met with a big no. It's not gonna last forever. You'll get through it, I promise. On April 12th, 2022, Jupiter conjuncts Neptune in your Pisces 6th house. This house again deals with coworkers, subordinates, pets, and your physical health. It is not a good time to make irreversible decisions. With Jupiter at home here meeting with Neptune, think things being too good to be true, having a little bit of confusion or delusion, or placing things on a pedestal. You might want to wait for this transit to pass before you make any final decisions that can't be reversed. On April 29th, 2022, Pluto stations retrograde in your Capricorn 4th house. This house deals with your home, property, roots, and foundation. And Pluto is the planet of rebirth and transformation. So think a rethinking of deep-seated or core beliefs that you may have coming up to the surface that lead to a rethinking of them and a transformation in the end in this area of life. On April 30th, 2022, there is a partial solar eclipse in your Taurus 8th house. Now, eclipses tend to be catalytic events outside of your control that set off a chain reaction of events playing out over the course of 6 months. And with this being a solar eclipse in your Taurus 8th house, the house that deals with taxes, investments, and shared resources, think of it as a new beginning that'll take place over the course of the next 6 months in this area of life. On May 10th, 2022, Jupiter enters your Aries 7th house, which deals with intimate relationships, one-on-one partnerships, whether they be romantic, business, or contracts. And Jupiter being the planet of expansion, expect some expansion or growth to occur here in this area of life. On May 15th, 2022, there is a total lunar eclipse in your Scorpio 2nd house. This house deals with your personal resources, your finances, your values, and with it being a total lunar eclipse, expect a catalyst event outside of your control, setting off a chain reaction over the course of the next 6 months that leads to an ending in this area of life. On June 4th, 2022, Saturn stations retrograde in your Aquarius 5th house, dealing with creativity, fun, love, sex, romance, things that you birth into the world. And with Saturn being the planet of restriction, loving the word no in Aquarius, think of this as a rethinking or reanalyzing of the boundaries or restrictions that you have in this area of life, and finding a way to incorporate that into some sort of structure. Taking us into the summer season, which is much slower paced than the spring. This is Cancer, Leo, and Virgo season. Lots of retrogrades, lots of rethinking, lots of reanalyzing. Not a time to start something new. On June 28, 2022, Neptune stations retrograde in your Pisces 6th house, physical health, co-workers, subordinates, and pets. Think of this as a rethinking of the ideals or dreams that you have surrounding this area of life. On July 28th, 2022, Jupiter stations retrograde in your Aries 7th house, dealing with things like one-on-one relationships, whether they be business partnerships, contracts, or romantic. And with Jupiter being the planet of expansion or growth, expect to be rethinking the growth that may have occurred here over the course of the last few months. On August 24th, 2022, Uranus, the planet of disruption and innovative solutions, stations retrograde in your Taurus 8th house of shared resources, investments, and taxes. So expect to be rethinking some of the innovative solutions or disruptions that have occurred here in this area of life. Taking us into the fall season, your season, covering Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius season. On October 8th, 2022, Pluto stations direct in your Capricorn 4th house of home, property, roots, and foundation. So think that whatever rethinking you may have done of those deep-seated beliefs that you may have, it's led to this transformation that you're ready to implement going forward. On October 22nd, 2022, Saturn stations direct in your Aquarius 5th house of creativity, love, romance, fun, and anything that you birth into the world. So think being ready to implement new structures based on rethinking some of the restrictions and the boundaries that you have here. On October 25th, 2022, there's a partial solar eclipse in your Scorpio 2nd house dealing with personal resources, finances, and values. So think a catalytic event setting off a chain reaction over the course of the next 6 months outside of your control that leads to a new beginning in this area of life for you. On October 27th, 2022, Jupiter retrograde moves back into your Pisces 6th house. Now, if you remember, between May and July of 2021, Jupiter dipped into your Pisces 6th house of subordinates, coworkers, physical health, and pets for a short period before it went back into Aquarius. It moved back in here December 29th of 2021 to May 10th of 2022. Think of this as like the climax or the peak period of growth and expansion in this area of your life before it stationed retrograde in Aries, coming back into your Pisces 6th house. So think of this as a rethinking of the expansion and growth that's occurred here and really kind of wrapping it up before Jupiter makes its way out into Aries again for good before it doesn't come back here again for another 12 or so years. On October 30th, 2022, Mars stations retrograde in your Gemini 9th house. This house deals with things like higher education, foreign travel, morals, ethics, philosophy, and religion. And with Mars being the planet of taking action, think of this as a rethinking or reanalyzing how you take action in these areas of life. Now, whether or not this is an incredibly challenging period for you, or if it's like a easily overcome challenges or just kind of a little bit of tension that helps you move forward will depend on if you're a day or night chart. If you are a day chart, this will be a little bit more of a challenging period for you. If you're of a night chart, think of this as yes, it's still challenging, but it ends up being a little bit smoother and leads to a rethinking of how you take action in a way that works well for you. On November 8th, 2022, there is a total lunar eclipse in your Taurus 8th house of shared resources, investments, and taxes. Think of it as a catalytic event outside of your control that leads to a ending playing out in this area of life for you over the course of the next 6 months. You could be rethinking some investments, maybe changing some that you're making, or changing some shared resources that you have accessible to you. On November 23rd, 2022, Jupiter stations direct in your Pisces 6th house. You've done this rethinking on all the growth and expansion that's happened here, and you're ready to finally move forward with the growth and expansion that you have in place. On December 3rd, 2022, Neptune stations direct in your Pisces 6th house. So think your rethinking of your dreams or ideals that you have in this area of life, dealing with your coworkers, subordinates, pets, or physical health, and having it really be ready to move forward or implement going forward. And on December 20th, 2022, Jupiter re-enters your Aries 7th house of relationships, one-on-one relationships, whether romantic, business partnerships, or contracts, really leading into the peak period of the expansion that we're going to have here, taking us into the final season of the zodiac, winter season, which incorporates Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces season. On January 12, 2023, Mars stations direct in your Gemini 9th house of higher education, philosophy, morals, ethics, and foreign travel. You've rethought how you take action here, and it's time to now start implementing that. On January 22nd, 2023, Uranus stations direct in your Taurus 8th house of shared resources, investments, and taxes. So it's like you've rethought the innovative solutions and you're ready to decide which ones are working for you and move forward with them. Between January 22nd, 2023 to April 21st of 2023, all planets in the sky are stationed direct yet again. More go, go, go time forward propelling motion. On March 7th, 2023, Saturn finally leaves your 5th house of love, sex, and romance and moves into your 6th house of physical health, subordinates, coworkers, and pets. So all those restrictions and boundaries that you've had there in that 5th house for quite some time will now be moving into the 6th house. You'll see them playing out here in this area of life. March 15th, 2023 is a little bit of a sort of day. Depending on if you're a day or night chart, it could play out differently for you. But to quote Marin, it is a little bit of a passive aggressive mess. The good news is when you have a lot of tension like this, it usually leads to a better position at the end, particularly a much better position if you're a night chart. Maybe a little bit more challenging if you're a day chart. We'll see. On this day, Mars in your Gemini 9th house of higher education, foreign travel, and philosophy squares Neptune in your Pisces 6th house of physical health, coworkers, subordinates, and pets. So think tension in this area of life. And on March 16th, this party gets bigger. Mercury, the Sun, and Neptune, all conjunct in Pisces, will be squaring that Mars in Gemini in that 9th house. So think tension between your 6th house of coworkers, subordinates, physical health, and pets will be in tension with your philosophies, higher education, and foreign travel. And as if that's not already a big enough passive-aggressive party, Venus, your chart ruler in your Aries 7th house of relationships, will square Pluto in your Capricorn 4th house of home, property, roots, and foundation. So it's a lot of tension there. The good news is on the other end, things will be looking pretty bright. This leads us to March 20th, 2023, when the sun will re-enter Aries and start a new zodiacal year. Let's get into the Mercury retrogrades. Remember, with all Mercury retrogrades, do not be surprised if you hit delays, funky things happening, transportation being all wonky, technology being all wonky, and for the love of God, please do not touch your hair. On May 10th, 2022, Mercury stations retrograde in your Gemini 9th house of philosophy, foreign travel, and higher education. It will retrograde back into your Taurus 8th house of shared resources, investments, and taxes before stationing direct there on June 3rd of 2022. On September 9th, 2022, Mercury will station retrograde in your Libra 1st house. This is the house that deals with self, image, body, and ego. It will retrograde back into your Virgo 12th house, which is your mental health or isolation house, before stationing direct there on October 2nd of 2022. On December 29th of 2022, Mercury will station retrograde in your Capricorn 4th house of home, property, roots, and foundation, and it will station direct there on January 18th of 2023. Getting into the other planetary retrogrades, on October 30th, 2022, Mars stations retrograde in your Gemini 9th house of foreign travel, philosophy, and higher education. It will remain retrograde until it stations direct there on January 12th of 2023. On July 28th of 2022, Jupiter stations retrograde in your Aries 7th house of one-on-one relationships, whether they be romantic, business partnerships, or contracts. It will retrograde back into your Pisces 6th house that deals with subordinates, coworkers, pets, and physical health before stationing direct there on November 23rd of 2022. On June 4th of 2022, Saturn stations retrograde in your Aquarius 5th house of love, sex, romance, creativity, and the things that you birth into the world. It will station direct there on October 22nd, 2022. The outer planet retrogrades on August 24th, 2022. Uranus stations retrograde in your Taurus 8th house of shared resources, investments, and taxes. It will station direct there January 22nd of 2023. On June 28th of 2022, Neptune stations retrograde in your Pisces 6th house of subordinates, coworkers, pets, and physical health. It will station direct there on December 4th of 2022. And lastly, Pluto stations retrograde on April 29th, 2022 in your Capricorn 4th house of home, property, roots, and foundation. It will station direct there on October 8th of 2022. And lastly, wrapping up and summarizing the eclipses we've already gone through. On April 30th, 2022, there is a partial solar eclipse in your Taurus 8th house of shared resources, investments, and taxes. Think a catalytic event outside of your control that sets off a chain reaction, leading to a new beginning playing out in this area of life over the course of the next 6 months. On May 15th, 2022, there is a total lunar eclipse in your Scorpio 2nd house, dealing with personal resources, finances, and values. Think a cataclystic event setting off a chain reaction over the course of the next 6 months that leads to an ending in this area of life. On October 25th, 2022, there is a partial solar eclipse in your Scorpio second house. So think a cataclystic event leading to a new beginning playing out over the course of the next 6 months in this area of personal resources, finances, and values. And lastly, on November 8th, 2022, there is a total lunar eclipse in your Taurus 8th house. So a catalytic event leading to a chain reaction that creates an ending of some kind that plays out over the course of the next 6 months with your shared resources, investments, and taxes. So that's it for your zodiacal year ahead, Aries to Pisces season 2022 to 2023. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, particularly comment. I love to read how these zodiacal transits play out for everybody. Thank you for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.